for the nerds. This is for the brainiacs. This what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back. You ain't gonna touch me. You not gonna do nothing. You are not above me. I bet you wish you was me. I know it. I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special morning edition. Man, we're getting used to this time slot of the Only Friends podcast. Today's a little bit light. It's just Christian and I with Guapo running the show back there. I wanted to do this kind of last minute morning episode with just Chin and I to kind of get everything back out there. I've been gone the last 2 days. Or I guess just yesterday as far as the podcast goes, but a lot of shit has gone down, and I think we got a lot to catch up on. What's going on, Chin?
I don't know if we are getting used to this morning slot, man. It doesn't look like I'm getting used to it.
Why not?
I'll defer to that.
Why not? What seems to be the problem, man?
No, because we have to listen. I'm up to do the podcast. And it's like research all day long, nightcap with Joey, and then like do it all over again. This is like the 5th day of this stuff.
Yeah, well, it's not going to end because Monday I'm going back to Live at the Bike to play with my friendly rival, Doug Polk, which means that we got a pod at like 8 a.m. And you'll be in Vegas, man. So like, we'll be on the same time.
This is not normal stuff. You understand?
Bro, you're an investigative journalist now, okay? This is the way.
How much we get paid?
Well, we'll see. To be determined. We got to get as big as Poppy, man. He has over 100K views already on the stream from last night. Guy's just out here doing work.
Hey, he's on his 27th edible.
Yeah, well, you got to get them night chocolates, bro.
All right, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna ask for Nick Bertucci. He actually sent me the photo of the edible that he, or I don't know, of the chocolate that he takes.
Right.
So maybe I'll grab one and see how quickly I call the fucking EMS because I'm having a panic attack again.
Yo, you guys don't know, like this is no joke about the whole Christian can't handle his marijuana. Not that I have any idea. I've never done pot, but he's he has the schizophrenia, the pure panic, the call the EMTs, I'm dying. That's a real thing.
Yeah, I think it's like a normal thing. Well, I don't know if it's a normal thing, but it's a common thing.
Sure.
Like there are people that like they take whatever and like they get paranoid. And
yes, there are people. That's that's the way it ends. It's like yes, there are people.
I'm trying to say that it's not as uncommon. I'm trying to say like, yo, shut up. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right, man, I'm shutting up. As always, thank you guys for joining us. Please like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate the support. We're going to get right into it. So there are a few things that I want to cover before we start talking about the Garrett statement, which we have yet to cover. I'm sure you guys are all caught up from Joey's pod, but we haven't spoken on it yet, and I wanted to get to that today. But before we do that, I want to double back on the Susie Zhao case. There was a verdict reached yesterday. Thankfully, he was found guilty on all counts, which is it was an obvious result. What I don't think yet is clear is what the actual sorry. Hold on one second. Sorry, I just got an email that kind of surprised me. What I don't think is clear yet is what has led to, or what led him to this terrible act. But I do want to read a brief summary that writer Jen Newell sent me of the entire case. I think that this is worth recounting a little bit because I think that there's some details here that are a little bit disturbing, but really paint the picture as like how sick this person actually was. So this was all from day one testimony, and I mean this really kind of solidified the whole case as far as I'm concerned. the brief summary was that as we had mentioned, Susie had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Her parents had seen her for the final time on July 12th. It appears that Susie had left and some way, shape, or form ended up meeting the defendant in this instance. So there was a round of witnesses that were called on day one. The first witness who was called was a man who was one of the two men who discovered the body driving to work on the morning of July 13th. So they drove past a park where they saw something smoldering. They thought it was a mannequin, but then discovered it was a person who had been burned. They saw fresh blood around her groin area. She was positioned with her arms and legs splayed out. There was a few other witnesses corroborating the discovery of the body. Then there was the lead forensic investigator who was on the scene that morning. She took photos, marked evidence such as cigarette butt, zip ties, and a piece of red burned plastic, part of the gas can. She took pictures of Susie, which that was kind of the disturbing imagery that they were all talking about. Then there was a witness, Dr. Andrew Anosh. This was the forensic pathologist that we had mentioned and the medical doctor who conducted Susie's autopsy. And there was a warning as this was being typed out that this is the worst part of the day, so be prepared. Susie was burned over 90% of her body, with only her back and buttocks spared as they were on the ground. He noticed significant injury to the perineum between the anus and vagina, torn open with a violent reaction injury and fresh blood, meaning it happened while she was still alive. The laceration was caused by a blunt object, likely a fist, using force as it went a half-inch deep into the muscle, significantly deep for that area of the body. He found that her circulatory system had collapsed due to the shock of being burned. He examined her respiratory tract, found soot way in her airway, deep into her airway, into her lungs, to the point that one lung was actually bleeding. This effectively corroborates that she was burned alive. He found that one wrist was tightly bound with a zip tie. The other one had one on it, but had come off at some point. And the toxicology test showed some psychiatric antipsychosis meds in her system, as well as a small level of THC. Everything else from that point forward was just kind of more stuff that was incriminating him, such as the security cameras from the store where he purchased like the black zip ties, the jar of petroleum jelly, et cetera, et cetera. The police report, the scientists who examined the DNA analysis. I know I'm going through this at length, but I thought it was really important to paint these details because it appears as though this was a targeted attack at Susie because she fit a profile, not specifically because she was a poker player or because she had some sort of dark side to her life or whatever. It seems as though this man was just pretty sick, a very sick individual, and Susie was the unfortunate target of his acts. So very disturbing stuff, very important that the guilty verdict came through, very critical to Susie's family that she's getting some level of justice. And I don't mean to recount this in such grim detail, but I think that it's very important for us to recognize, just what I don't want to say what a dangerous time it is that we live in, but more so just like what the chance happenings are whenever you are in a position to be some sort of public profile. So, she was in the public scene with the LA streams and things of that nature. I don't know if she was specifically targeted. I don't know if she was profiled by this guy from having seen her on video and stuff like that. But, just even speaking from my own personal experience, there is a lot of, weird interactions that take place by people who avidly watch, who are watching from afar, and things of that nature. I just, I think it's very important to shine a light on this. I think it's very important to tell her story. I think it's critical that she actually did get her justice when it was all said and done. So I wanted to, kind of kick things off with that news, even though it may be a little bit grim, and then move away from it a little bit, maybe permanently.
I think we would just want to remember her in her best light, right? She was a high stakes pro. She was on all the streams. She was a beautiful woman, and it's unfortunate that this happened. And and I'm glad that there's closure for the family.
Yeah, agreed. On a lighter note, as far as poker news goes, big day for Daniel Negreanu yesterday. He was able to actually go wire to wire. Legitimately wire to wire. I think the Bryn, D-Negs, Aces, Threes hand happened, I don't know, first level, maybe. And he was chip leader from there, and I think he maybe relinquished it for a brief period going into the final table where Petrangelo had overcome him for a small period of time. But just coast to coast, 24-man event. There's been a lot of talk of D-Negs doesn't have it anymore. He's been getting wrecked. He's been running bad. A lot of all-ins lost. I can relate. I know what that feels like. And he's kind of gotten his vindication a little bit. He's gotten second in the Super High Roller Bowl once to Bonomo. That was a much bigger one. That was 2017 or 2018, I believe. For probably right around the same that he won this one for. But let's cut to the D-Negs interview.
Let's not forget second also in the one drop.
Yeah, the $1 million one drop. Yeah,
that was a big event.
He's putting quite the resume together whenever it comes to high roller events. Let's hear what he had to say.
Daniel, congratulations. What's it feel like to come out on top of this one?
I got to tell you, the last 2 years, I hate whining about bad luck. It's the worst. Nobody wants to hear it, right? I've been feeling it. My wife, when I come home, she feels what it's like so frustrated. You feel like you're playing well, and the results are not there. And you hear the internet, Daniel, we got to play your way. You know what? I just did play my way, and it felt really, really good. And I felt super confident coming into this one. Deep stack, no limit hold'em. Not all this all-in stuff. I'm petrified to go all in. I don't ever want to be all in any state. But actually, in this tournament, I was never all in, for my tournament life, which is a blessing.
You touched on it briefly. We've talked a lot about resilience over these last 2 years. Is this win proof of just how important resilience is?
Absolutely. Listen, everybody goes through it. If you play poker for a living, you're going to go through streaks. I've been playing 30 years, right? What good is it of me telling you? I promise you, the last 2 years and all this has been the worst I've ever seen. And if you told me this happened to you, I'd be going, you're just playing bad. I'm like, no, I'm really playing well. I swear. I tell Paul when I come in every day, I'm like, buddy, I'm playing good. you know, what's going on here? But, I tested out some things at the Poker Masters, and I put them into play there. And I really started with some new material, if you will, and found it really, really effective. I think, if people talk about no limit hold'em, right, and solving it, there's an evolution still to be had, right? Especially deep stack poker, 100 deep, adding that limping strategy that nobody studies for, and I knew that going into this, and I'm like, I don't think they're going to be prepared as I am. I've been doing it for 3 decades.
What's it mean to you to win a super high roller bowl ring, especially considering this kind of competition?
A few years ago, I was heads up for one, a super high roller bowl, had the big crowd of friends come, and I'm like, I punted, because I was trying to get out with them. And this year I told people, I said, don't come. Really, don't come. Let me just win this, and I'll come home, we'll open a bottle of champagne, and then we'll go to the hockey game tomorrow. And, just let me do my thing,
Time for that champagne. But first, it's an honor of mine to present you with your super high roller bowl ring.
I'll wear that.
You can take it out of the box.
Sweet.
That is yours.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. Check it out.
Right there. There he is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah!
Your super high roller bowl 7 champion, Daniel Negreanu.
All right.
Who do you suppose it was tweeting and talking to Daniel in that accent? And what was that accent?
That's 100% Mike Mattisell. There's no way. It was Daniel, you got to play your way. What the fuck? It had to be Mike Mattisell.
He sounded like Hungarian or something.
I understand. Yeah, it sounded like an Eastern European grandma, but like, I'm pretty sure it was Mike Mattisau because they talk every day, and he's always like super critical of the way that the way that Daniel plays.
I mean, imagine that that's who you're having to suffer through No Limit Hold'em sideline coaching from.
I would wager that I would make a decent wager that it has to be.
That'd be like every time I come off a stream game with an L, I have to sit through Conrad's explanation as to like, how to get in the mix.
He's a good friend of yours. You gotta listen. What can you do?
He is. Did a great job on the show yesterday, by the way. You guys really let him run free. That reading was. He
held on. He held back. As soon as the show ended, he wanted to like fire it up again. He's like, "You want to just go again? Like, I'll just turn it on right now." I'm like, "Bro, let Guapo live." But let's get back to Daniel. So what a wild ride, man! These last 2 years, call it 2.5 years, whatever. Like, you're looking at $1 million loss heads up to Doug Polk in a very publicized manner. Then after that, loses $1 million at WSOP. Another very public thing because he's doing a vlog every single day, right? Most of the times when people are losing millions, like you don't hear about it, right?
Right. Then
comes back now and just, he won, was it a Poker Go Cup event? Or, he won like a Poker Go event, like a big number, and then follows that up now with the super high roller win, which, pending how much action is sold, whatever, we can assume that like the losses are mostly wiped. So great. I mean, what a wild 2 years.
He made $800,000 for Pocket Fives investors.
That's nice.
Yeah, he sold 25% Pocket Fives.
Having 75% of that number is nice, though.
No, of course. I'm just saying, like, what a great spot to, because like I'm sure most people who are buying are like paying pretty small numbers, like 1,000, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get
it's being redistributed to the entire 1, 2, and 2, 5 community right now.
Yeah, they all got the 12x their investment, man. I mean, it's gonna 12x. I'm just saying, like
the games are gonna be good this weekend.
It's up to you. Yeah, it's like a short little Bitcoin pop. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I feel for him, or I actually feel what he's saying whenever he's talking about like the way your mind plays tricks on you, especially when you're playing a lot of tournaments. It's why I struggle so much to come around to it. You just have to suffer through so much variance by being all in. It's so impossible to retrain your mind that you're just going to eventually break even in these spots. And I saw Chris Brewer put something out yesterday that kind of alluded to both the variance in poker as well as the nonsense that's happening over at Hustler. I can't recall the exact tweet word for word, but it was something along the lines of study your ass off, become elite at this game, win all of your all-ins, and then also hope that you're not being cheated on the back end. Sure, seems easy. And I mean, right. it really is accurate, right? It's like when, especially now that we're becoming so much more privy to all of the ways that the game can be corrupted, it really fucks with you, especially in the live realm where you're putting in no volume and you're in a situation where you're suffering what could be negative variance, or you're just absolutely being cheated. But the sample size is, a couple hundred hands or a couple thousand hands. And it's just impossible to know.
Correct. You're onto something. Basically, when you're a professional poker player, you don't want to believe that you're being cheated, right? You want to say that, oh, well, I'm not making the right decisions or variance, et cetera. And, our brains are not really programmed to understand variance that way. So we just don't understand the swings, right? If you're playing a 1 million hand sample with like a 4 BB win rate, you're going to go on 50 buying downs doing straight, at a fair clip. And like, we just don't get that. Right. So And that's like you playing fairly well at a 4 BB, but like when you're at like buying 40 that you're down, now all of a sudden, you're a human being and you start questioning a lot of things. And, we kind of have to rail ourselves back in.
Do you though? Sometimes you're cheated, man. Sometimes.
All right, I see that. I get where we're going. Okay, let's transition. Go ahead.
Sometimes you're cheated. All right, so yesterday afternoon, just after our show ended, Garrett took to 2+2 to put out a very lengthy thread as far as what he suspects has been going on with regard to the whole Hustler scenario. This wasn't really news to us. We've kind of been in the shits ourselves, let's say. We've been filled in and clued in along the way. We've heard every conspiracy, and I think that's why a lot of the flip-flopping took place, because we are, we're talking to everybody involved. We're talking to the operators. We're talking to the people who are accused of being cheated, the people who have cheated. We're tuning into Ingram, who's also getting a ton of information. So we're privy to a lot of the theories that are floating around. I do at this point lean very heavily on Garrett's side, where there's just a high degree of confidence that some level of cheating took place. I'm very unsure how that cheating took place. I'm very unsure what the cheating ring looks like. I'm not sure where the start or finish is, but let's just parse through, the finer points of this and tackle them one by one. So the TLDR of all of this is basically Garrett is nearly positive that cheating occurred. There's video evidence of Rip and Robbi allegedly working together to cheat these games. Robbi likely lied about several aspects of her relationship with Rip. He says Beanz likely lied about his relationship with Robbi, including an exchange of money a few days prior to the Jack 4 game, which we'll double back on that. Rip, Robbi, and Nik Airball dined together for 7 hours the night before. And then the next morning, Airball agrees to give Rip a $175K loan. The financial relationship between Robbi and Rip was not made known, which we kind of already knew that. Beanz' own recollections and information from many others suggest he may also have a criminal record as a known scammer. Beanz has referred to the king of scammers of Kansas City and was a person of interest in the 2017 robbery at the Bellagio Casino. So people kept saying that he was the Bellagio Bandit. It should be very clear that these are two totally separate stories. The Bellagio Bandit happened in like 2012, I think. 2011 maybe? 2011, I think. Because I was still back in the tortoise back then. And that man was caught, put in jail for a period of time, and I believe is actually out at this point. His name is Tony. Can't remember his last name. But anyway, in 2017... Big Tony. In 2017, however, there was a string of robberies at the Bellagio that ended in a firefight where the actual robber was shot and killed. Bryan of HLC, which we'll dig into this in a bit, is a known problem gambler and a criminal with means and motive to play a key role in the alleged cheating effort. Bryan also publicly sought information on methods of cheating prior to the game in question. On 9/27, Robbi was seen by Julie Yorn angle shooting. Okay, so we'll discuss this a little bit more in length. Julie went on Ingram's podcast last night. I had spoken to Julie personally. It's very funny. I texted her yesterday and planning to do this show today, and I go, can I talk a little bit about the story that you told me? And she goes, well, in what context? And I was like, I just want to basically reference that you played with her and that she claimed, or that it was suggested that she knew you from private games and you had never met her in private games, yada, yada, yada. And she was like, yeah, I don't mind. Just, be delicate. And then like last night I tuned in and she's just telling the whole story on air. And I'm like, okay, well that does a lot of heavy lifting for me. I don't have to be a secondhand account. Like we can just lean on what she said. But to summarize what this actually means, Julie played with Robbi in I believe it was a 50-100 game at the bike. Robbi bought in for the minimum of $5K, and I'm not exactly, I'm still a little unclear. I've heard the story twice now. I'm still a little unclear of how it worked. Maybe she was waiting for chips or something along those lines, but She bought it for $5K and doubled nearly immediately, and somehow went south on that initial $5K buy-in. And when she was called out on it, she basically just like decided to rack up and leave. The other detail of this story was that Ling Ling basically told Julie that Robbi was on her way and was coming to play the game, and said so with like some level of excitement, because she said Robbi claimed that Julie and her knew each other from private games. So Julie kind of asked, when she got there, like, do you play private games? Yada, yada, yada. And it seemed as though Robbi was just kind of like, no. And this is all important because, remember, Robbi's story has been very inconsistent throughout, basically saying everything from like she plays really high stakes private games and money doesn't mean anything to her, and she's a very good poker player, and all this other stuff, all the way to the other side of like she just started playing poker a year ago. She never plays cash. She referred to the Hustler game as a tournament multiple times. And there's just like a very high degree of inconsistency here and suspicion around why this story is so off the mark. I think the Julie Yorn story just furthers that narrative that Robbi's caught in a lie of some sort when it comes to her credibility as a poker player, her credibility as somebody who has money and funds to be playing relatively high stakes, and most importantly, the credibility to the idea that she didn't care about 100K so much that she just yellowed it in with Jack High. Anything to add before I go on?
The part that I heard about the Julie situation was
we lost you, Chin.
Oh, you lost me. Okay, come back to me when you can.
We hear you now. Just start back at the beginning.
You're back, Chin. Nope.
Christian's having a headphone issue. We will wait for him to get that sorted, and I'll let him chime in whenever he is ready. Christian, you can just keep talking, and if we hear you, I'll stop. But yeah, we don't hear you right now. While he's trying to figure that out, so there's okay, we hear you now.
My bad. All right, basically the story that I heard from that situation was that she was calling for chips. Obviously, you can still play behind. She ends up going all in, wins in that situation, but never puts in the initial buy-in. So basically, she was free rolling the situation in that spot. Or so that's what happened. And then the other one was basically that Ling Ling's basically saying like, "Oh, you've played with her before." She says like you played in these private games together, whatever. And obviously, I could be like missing some very small details, so I apologize, Julie, if I did. But Julie basically was like, I've never met this woman in my life, so she was kind of like using the fact that she was in that scene, and maybe Julie also is in that scene as like a way to like give her validity, so to speak.
Yeah. So it did, yes, exactly that. It seemed as though there was some level of trying to kind of negotiate soft vouching, while obviously having no experience. And this is what I was alluding to. Like whenever Robbi was on Joey, basically saying like she plays huge and like the money doesn't mean anything and all this other stuff. It's like I'm very tapped in to the high stakes cash community, especially the private scene, and I've never heard one peep about this woman showing up anywhere. The fact that like she basically has no experience with anybody who played on that Hustler stream, as she claims prior, also furthers that narrative of just like she's brand new to the scene, coming in with $250,000 seemingly funded by somebody else who's sitting with far less and doesn't have and apparently was like, that's the other thing, man. If none of this makes sense. So I just watched the Rip interview with Joey today, and this wasn't touched on, but I think it's a bit of an oversight. Rip was talking about how he borrowed $175K from Airball and why. Basically, like he had no intention of playing the game and didn't have money on hand, yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. Let's pretend that over 24-hour span, they made such a close relationship that Airball was willing to just front a very nice luxury vehicle to Rip on the finger and pray he got paid back. How did Robbi get the 250? So you're telling me that Rip like sent 250 ahead of time for Robbi, doesn't ever mention it in the interview, doesn't ever like use that as a point of reference for why he was able to get the money from Nik, because like that's an easy thing to at least point to for collateral's sake, right? And taking it even further, like if his watch truly is worth $400K, that would be a nice thing for Airball to accept as collateral. Like it doesn't make sense that he just took this loan on the finger out of the blue. And it also doesn't make sense that Rip wouldn't just say like, okay, like I know I gave you 250 to play, but like I'm free rolling you anyway. I'm gonna play in this game now. Give me 100 back, right? And play with 150, or give me 150 back and play with 100. Like we'll figure it out, type of thing. Like I've been in situations where I'm sharing liquidity with somebody that we're both playing big, and I never would put myself in a situation where I'm playing and leaving myself broke, right? That's not to say that like I would never borrow. Of course I would, but like that's decades of building up enough of a network and enough clout and enough credibility that I would be able to find a peer to borrow this money off of, right? So this whole story to me stinks, right? But I'm not as confident as Garrett that it implicates Nik in any capacity. Nik could just kind of be taken for a ride by somebody who's charming. They had a 7-hour dinner together, that type of stuff. He presents himself as very wealthy. Maybe he actually is. I don't know. I can't seem to find too much on either him or Robbi when it comes to their past.
I agree with a couple points that you said. Basically, he gives him 170. Was it 175 or 250?
I think it was 175. Sure. Yeah.
So basically, gives him the entirety of liquidity that he had. At the time,
so that
which makes sense.
Well, wait, that also means that that number is strange too, right? Because Rip bought him for 100. So that means that Robbi initially had 175, and then he gave her the extra 75. Like, as far as I could tell, he didn't have a reload. He bought him for 100 and bled himself down to like 18K.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're gonna have to do the math on that.
Right.
Maybe the chat can help us on what their initial buy-ins were.
Right. Okay. And the chat's saying that on Joey's pod, both Rip and Nik said that Robbi already had chips to play with when, which again, this doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he borrow from Robbi then? Right? He's free rolling her into the game. Why would he borrow from a perfect stranger?
Because of the wire.
No. You don't understand. Both Rick, God damn it, both Nik, that's Melissa's fault. Both Nik and Rip were confirming, okay. So, I mean, this all seems very strange. I don't know what to believe. But basically, they both said that Robbi already had chips, right? And if Robbie's as wealthy as she claims, she lives in LA, it should be very easy for her to get liquidity. Like, this shouldn't be a challenge at all. Whether it's, physically going to the bank or having some borrowing power herself. It doesn't add up to me that it makes more sense for Rip to borrow $175,000 from a perfect stranger than it does for him to borrow from the horse that he's putting in. Jamie says she probably had some chips from playing in other streams, but may not a full buy-in. I mean, possibly she won 100K in the prior stream that she played. So, I mean, that would be a full buy-in. And she was in for whatever. I think she was in relatively smallish, maybe like 50 or 40, something like that. But in any event, like the whole thing I'm trying to poke holes in here is that is that it doesn't make any sense to me that they have a working relationship. They both claim to have a ton of money, and somehow a third-party stranger is brought in as the loan shark for no incentive whatsoever. He wasn't charging any VIG. He didn't take any collateral, as best we can tell. Right? Like, what about this makes sense?
He didn't get a piece of the game either.
He was offered a piece that he turned down.
Right.
Which I would too. That's a tax, not a fucking incentive. Two fish are like, hey, I'll sell you 15%.
Depends. I mean, you never know.
What?
She did well that day.
Yeah, I mean, well, if they let you in on the fact that they have info, that's a little different. Now I'm in. I'm very much struggling to piece together this loan. It doesn't make very much sense to me. I can't really follow why anyone would ever want to do this to a perfect stranger. And like, I understand that this happens in the high stake community a lot, but never like this, right? Nik isn't in the game. It would make way more sense to me if Nik is actually in the game and sees that Robbi and Rip are potentially whales, and that, you know, he's the biggest winner in the game, so he's going to take on the risk of lending. This happens all the time. I see Robo put in this spot a lot, and I've seen Robo get fucked because of it, but, you know, his win rate is assumed to be so high that it kind of levels itself out, right? That's not what happened here, though. Nik wasn't in the game at all. He stood to benefit nothing by offering this loan. He is in a situation where he's on the hook now, right? Like, he's heavily invested in the results. If they just dust, what's he going to do? Follow them back, or follow Rip back to Vegas and like pray he pays? He's going to out him publicly on social. Like,
let me present Nik's case. So Nik is a game runner. On top of his normal job, he runs games at the Hustler. He calls the Hustler his home, and they consistently have games that are not on stream, often in the realm of 50, 100, you know, with some straddles and stuff like that. He seems to be the main facilitator of money in the game. Like, this is similar to if you, back in the day, if we went to Florida, Jason Mercier would be this person.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? So he is the main facilitator of money and chips in the game, often lending to both pros and non-pros. So this is sort of usual business for him, because he is trying to, you know, develop a relationship with these people. They seem to not be able to get the wire in, and, you know, he has some chips to be able to lend, and this isn't anything unusual for Nik.
yes,
Back to you.
when they're in his game. They're not
Right.
playing his game, though. They're playing a competitor's game, if anything.
Well, further, right? He believes that if he provides value both to the, you know, the establishment, as well as, you know, facilitating chips, probably sometimes also for people on the stream, that he'll be able to provide value and, you know, stay in you know, the good graces of the companies.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like, I don't think this makes very much logical sense, but I could see a world where he's just being sloppy, and, you know, it potentially was just like a lapse in judgment with somebody that he made fast friends with over a very long dinner. I can kind of accept that. It's a little strange to me, though. Like, I guess, like, that's where I'll leave it. Is this strikes me as very strange. Another detail that strikes me as very strange is that he says for 7 hours, he, Rip, and Robbi were at Javier's having dinner the night before. Now, if you recall, in the Poker News interview, Robbi said she was hungover because she was out with her twin sister the night before, who was leaving to go on a vacation shortly thereafter, right? Now, I find this interesting for two reasons. Number one, actually, can you just pull up that tweet real quick? So play this clip.
The reason I'm wearing sunglasses is I had a lot of wine with my identical twin sister the night before, because she was gone to Palm Springs for 3 weeks. I was a little hungover that day, put on some sunglasses, didn't want to take any medication as well. And the reason I'm wearing sunglasses.
Okay, so I have a few questions here. Number one, why is it so important for her to distance herself from the truth? Right? Why not just say she was out with Rip and Nik getting drunk? Right? Number two,
maybe she did both.
No, maybe, but like Nik confirmed they were the only three there, and that they were there from 4 p.m. until midnight, or 5 p.m. till midnight, whatever. So she went out after midnight with her. I mean, come on. She went out for what, an hour with her sister? Either way, that wasn't where the getting drunk took place, right? Rip also confirmed that he was hungover and didn't want to play the next day because he got so drunk at dinner. And Airball also said that he got not blacked out, but like very drunk at dinner, right? So everybody is very much telling the same story that the dinner took place, with the exception of Robbi. Robbi's distancing herself from Rip and from Nik. And this is after it was already disclosed that her and Rip had a financial relationship. So what's the point? I don't understand, right? Why fabricate this? And then secondarily,
oh no.
Right. It's fishy as fuck, man.
Go ahead.
Secondarily, why is the context of this story being told in a way of making her explain away the glasses? Right? Like, why do you have to explain? Why not just say, like, I like the way they look? I mean, nothing's going to be discovered, right? Like, they have the decks. We're not going to find invisible ink on them, I assume. She knows it's being investigated. Why is this necessary to tell this lie to explain away wearing glasses?
Why are you laughing, bro?
Because
you
it's
have this small grin on your face, like got him.
Well, it's not a got him. It's just more so like, this is what a 7-year-old would do, right? Like, this is how 7-year-olds lie. They just keep telling details about stuff that doesn't matter, and they keep lying about said details in order to like create confusion. Like, if I just create so many data points, the person I'm lying to won't actually dig into the biggest lie that I'm telling. And the problem with that is that anybody who's paying any attention whatsoever just begins to understand that none of your story adds up. It's all inconsistent. She's doubled and tripled down on things that she later contradicts herself. And that's very problematic whenever you're being accused of cheating. At least I think it is. I don't know.
What'd she say about not taking your medication? Maybe it's something like that. Maybe she's,
Right. So I guess she was saying because she was hungover, she didn't want to take her medication, which I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about Adderall. I don't know if it's a bad thing to take.
Is it Adderall that she was referring to? We don't know that, right?
Well, she said ADHD.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
I don't know anything about Adderall, but I would assume if you're hungover, Adderall would be a blessing, not a curse. I mean,
don't know, man. Anytime I take drugs, I'm delusional.
Okay, well, you're a special treat. But like, I know if I wake up very dehydrated, which is what a hangover is, it's dehydration based off of all the alcohol consumption. If I wake up very dehydrated, which gives me the headache and the groggy feeling and all that shit, hydration plus caffeine is a godsend. Like, it's the cure, right? So I can't imagine that a stronger version of that in Adderall wouldn't be a welcomed alternative. But again, I'm speculating. I don't know anything about the drug, and I don't know anything about ADHD. I don't have it. So
what we're trying to say, though, or at least what you're trying to say in that situation, is that there is an inconsistency in the story. She's basically said that she went out to have dinner and had drinks, got blasted with the group, but then she also said that she was with her sister. So this is like when the police comes into you and the police comes to your door and they're like, oh, what were you doing last night? And now like there's two different stories.
Correct. Yes.
In this case, you're the police.
I'm not the police. Poker,
Feels like
Poker News is the police. We're all the police at this point, right? We're all the police. So going back through some of these other details that I kind of want to highlight, we have all of the sleuths out there that are digging through all the hands that she's played, that are looking at all the body language stuff, the verbal communication that's taking place in a lot of the hands. I think there's a lot of that taking place. I think that people are now starting to examine Rip's play a lot more. They want to see, what we can pick up based off of him. He did lose in both games that he played. I think he's down something like 120K total. Robbi is actually up roughly that number also. So it looks like between the two of them, they broke roughly even. I want to get now to. I think we should pivot now into the DM from Bryan. Let's pivot into the DM from Bryan and talk about the relevancy of all this. After all of this breaks, actually, before we get into that, let's talk about Robbi's response to Garrett, because I think this is something that hasn't really been discussed too much. So
can you read it out loud, like how Conrad did yesterday?
I was gonna say, you want me to do a Conrad rendition?
Yeah, let's go. Come on, you gotta do the whole act though too. It just has to have different
I'm not gonna
pitch
do that.
and everything.
For brevity's sake, I'm not gonna do that. She said, I have unfortunately taken the time to read through Garrett's novel. As expected, I found it to be full of inaccuracies and conjecture. Pause. I want to stop there because I watched Rip's interview also, and he just keeps saying things like, I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm very successful, yada, yada. Every time something's called into question, they never give detail. What are these inaccuracies? Give me fucking one. She just skips right over that and now goes into something else. Okay, so she explains zero of the inaccuracies. She does nothing to clear her name, nothing to say like Garrett is wrong about this, and this. Instead, she just goes on to now regarding the theft. Regarding the theft, I will say this one more time and one time only. I have no relationship with this now former employee, Bryan, and I would challenge anybody reviewing the security footage to show otherwise. I will not address the individual videos and timestamps as they are nothing new and simply a regurgitation of more of the same shit. My accusers have now exhausted buzzing seats, camera rings, microphone, water bottles, and spy paraphernalia, have moved on to me having an alleged conspiracy relationship with someone I do not know. Okay, so again, this is all just another distraction, right? Distraction tactic where it's like, oh, let's look at all these whataboutisms and say all the things that they suspected me to be doing that it's not, right? And that's obviously always going to be the nature of an investigation like this. You have to explore all options, right? Like, just like I think anybody who was doing their due diligence explored all avenues of what could potentially be taking place. Everything from she's not cheating to she is cheating. Everything from Garrett's involved to being not involved, like all the way up to the top of the production, right? It's like we have to, as objective outside viewers, look at this through the lens of no one's fucking innocent until we can arrive at a conclusion that they either don't have motive or they don't have the access to do so, et cetera, right? And from a security standpoint,
that part's important because it's, people are going to be suspected, and it's not that we feel like you're involved. It's just that if you're in the production house or adjacent to the production house or in the building often, you're just kind of a suspect for a little bit until we can just clear your name. Like,
especially
it's
when there's
how it works.
Yeah, especially when there's an inside man who comes forward.
That part for sure. Once we saw that someone in there was, taking, completely unethical actions, like just actually straight up stealing, now we're like, okay, well, now everyone has to be looked at. And that's unfortunate because there are people that are innocent that are going to be looked at, and they're going to feel some type of way.
Right. And I mean, we're doing that now. Like, I can't really talk too much about it now because I haven't fully fleshed it out, but I plan on Monday show, very, very likely on Monday show, to discuss some things from a security measure and why, we have to take a really fucking deep look at all of this from the outside looking in. It's critical because there's so much trust involved between us and the production house that doesn't need to be there. There's a much more trustless system that's able to be created. And, I've been harping on this for the better part of a week, and I'm going to shift the conversation to that on Monday whenever we have a chance to actually build out a proper show. But, for the time being, while we're still just going off of first-hand, second-hand accounts, we have to look at all angles, right? So again, now Robbi continues forward, and she just keeps basically trying to dance around anything meaningful or tangible, and just keeps basically projecting why she's innocent without ever giving any details as to what would allow her to be cleared. She says, I'm scheduled to take a lie detector test despite the fact that I've already been vindicated by behavior analysts considered to be the best in the world. Bro. Did you watch our show on Thursday?
I saw the whole clip, yeah.
I don't mean to eviscerate people who claim to be experts in their field, but they may be the best in the world at what they do, but what they do is pretty fucking nonsense. I mean, that video was an hour and 40 minutes of trash. Just like,
yeah, I mean, and also we don't know, like, look, part of this is PR stunts, right? Like,
yeah.
She does have a public relations manager that, you know, may be helping her
Of course.
garnering these sort of media exposés, so to speak, where she gets to clear her name in some way or another, you know, whether that's the LA Times, whether that is getting these experts that
I'll tell you what,
it doesn't look like she did it.
The LA Times is that's an objective piece. It's the LA Times. You can't like send them a check for $1,000 and say, hey, can you write a fluff piece about me? It doesn't work that way.
Oh, we don't necessarily know, man. LA is different, right? There's a ton of celebrities. Wait. There's a ton of celebrities in LA, and you know, they can certainly pay like, hey, like follow me around for a day, see how my day looks, etc. I need some exposure because I have some things coming up. Like, I would be surprised.
Did you read the article?
Times, I read pieces of the article.
Okay, you should read the whole article. I spoke with the journalist who did it. I'm very confident that she was doing her job objectively, and she's very intelligent. Now, was the slant of the article kind of demonstrating the back story of Robbi more so than the conjecture of cheating? Yeah, but at that point in time, the inside man hadn't been released, and 90% of the public was on the side that Robbi was innocent. So of course you're not going to write a hit piece on her. That wouldn't make any sense. But they didn't write a hit piece on Garrett either, which would make a lot more sense to the degree of what you're talking about. Also, it wasn't like
it was heavily slanted towards her side.
It was heavily slanted.
There wasn't a lot that you're not going to convince me that there was like a ton of due diligence done on this article.
I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree. I spoke with the reporter for 30 minutes. I couldn't disagree more.
Okay.
And I would implore you to read the whole article. But in any event, I do agree with you in the sense that there's a lot of spin taking place here. What I would love to do is stress test a lot of these things, right? I would love to have that body language panel or whatever dissect video of me and you where one of us is cheating but they don't know it, right? Or like maybe have them dissect 6 people where there's one cheat and have them try to discover the cheat through body language. I promise you, I very, very confidently can state that they would never outperform the 1 in 6 probability. Like, there's just no chance. If we just had them do it a ton, there's just no shot in hell that they would have any level of accuracy. Like, it was so terrible. Just like I would love to stress test the wands that they're using at Hustler to walk in. I'm almost certain that we could find devices that would be able to make it to the table that would help propagate cheating, right? But all of that's unimportant if your back end is tight, right? If the back end is tight, getting the device through doesn't really mean anything. Okay. So she ends by saying, I will continue my ongoing... Oh, also, I think the lie detector thing is a huge distraction. It's inadmissible in court in almost all jurisdictions, and nobody believes them to be highly accurate. But anyway, I will continue my ongoing effort to prove my innocence, so I ask that you patiently wait for the investigation to complete. For that wording bothers me also. I mean, I don't know, whatever. It just bothers me. It feels like there's an implication there that somehow she's involved in the investigation. For those who continue to stand with me, thank you. Your outpouring of love and support has given me the strength and hope I need to make through this. The truth will be liberating and bring this exhausting process to an end. So I know we kind of dissected it throughout, but you know, at this point, like every time she speaks, I feel more and more confident that we are getting taken for a ride. No.
Sorry, man. I'm just like thinking of all the hotels and stuff that these people own because that's what I read in the article, and I'm just like really thinking of how much due diligence was done. But hey, you know, let's go for it. I want to stay in one of the hotels.
Okay, I mean that's fair. I don't know if that's just taking her at her word or not.
Can I see the jewelry line also? I want to see the jewelry line. I might need a new necklace right here.
When I'm saying due diligence, I'm talking about the actual event that took place. I thought the poker stuff was written about very well. I thought that the recounting of events and the accusations were framed properly. These are all the things that are most important to me. Like the actual lifestyle bullshit about Robbi. Like, yes, I agree. It was a slant piece to like, you know, frame her in a non-victim way, or sorry, frame her in a victim way. But again, you have to remember at the time of the writing of the article, the general consensus was that like she's 90% plus to be innocent.
Yeah, and look, all I'm saying is that when you hire a PR team and now all of a sudden you immediately have an article at LA Times that's slanted in your favor, it just heavily feels like it's pay to play, and that's it. And of course, they're gonna like bring you in potentially to like, you know, like make it somewhat fair, but like we know. I kind of feel like we kind of have an idea of what we were reading there. And yeah, you're right. I didn't read the whole thing, but I read a fair chunk to make a conclusion of what this scope was. But hey, you know, I digress. You know, I do want you know, maybe I could stay there a few nights at the hotel or whatever. I think there was a hotel or two. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that I'm finding is that this stuff is difficult to. And I'm not excusing the LA Times if they failed on this account because they're an actual publication as opposed to us. But this stuff is difficult to cross-reference. I can't find anything on these people. Like, yeah,
but their job is this.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like,
so look,
it's not like it's a quick Google search away.
Bro, you own a hotel?
It should be a quick Google search away. Is my point.
Are you the Hiltons? Like, what's up?
Right. Also, if you own a hotel, why do you have to borrow money from Nik?
Yeah, man, that's the whole point of the article. The article is trying to portray a light. Like, look, we're rich, we're LA, we're LA. Like, we don't need to do this for one, like 150K or whatever the number is. Like, that's pretty much what's trying to be, you know, slid under the radar.
Right.
And look, whatever.
I agree with that.
I'm not even saying, I'm just saying it looked fishy to me the way that, you know, what was really trying to happen here. And that's all. Like, and maybe I'm wrong, man. I don't fucking know. Like, I need a PR team, maybe.
We all need a PR team. We're gonna fucking need one for sure after this is all said and done. Okay, yes, I agree with you in that regard. The narrative that the money was meaningless to her and that will allow her to somehow play Jack High this way. I stand by my quote in the article of the worst player in the world could never arrive at a decision to call that all in shove with Jack 4 high there. It's just impossible. It's absolutely impossible, right? Like literally day one, lesson one of poker. Ace high beats king high beats queen high beats jack high. Like, I can't believe that David Williams is spending hours on the Joey Ingram podcast getting the notion out there that there have been times in his life where he wanted to fuck you call with hands that bad. Like, A, you're a professional, so like, sure, we've all had that feeling of wanting to fuck you call, and we've even done it. Hell, I called Brad Booth's 400 big blind jam pre with king queen because fuck you. Like, it's bad, it's terrible. He had kings, I'm dead, right? But like, I understand it still has to fit a framework of logic. You're never going to arrive at the river with 5 high, get jammed on, and say like, man, fuck this guy, I know he's bluffing, call. Because you still have to be able to win. It's not a fuck you call if you can never fucking win, right? And like she could literally never win. And David knows that. That's why I don't understand this shifting of it. Honestly, again, I've said this before and I'll say it 1,000 more times. It's because it's Robbi. If this were instead Rip, there is 0% chance that anybody would be jumping to the defense of this hand in some world of reason could be played, right? And I'm not even trying to go down the narrative of like it's illogical. I'm trying to go down the narrative of it's impossible.
Yeah, but I understand David Williams' position. Like if you play, enough poker, enough years with, in these condos, and things like that, you're gonna see some wild shit.
You do see wild shit.
Some wild calls.
I've seen wild shit, man. I've seen the wildest shit. But this doesn't track. This doesn't fit into the wild shit category. Right? Like this is not even a product of that whole soul read scenario. Like it's one of those things where it's too much of an anomaly to ever be able to explain away with even the most insane thing. The only way you could explain it away if you're in Robbi's shoes is I wanted Garrett to be richer. Like I just wanted to give him 100,000 and I thought it would be suspicious if I handed it to him off the table. So this was our method, right? Like there's just literally no way. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked into this because I just feel a little bit more able to speak my mind now that the inside man theory has come out, because it's just so abundantly clear now that cheating did occur. And like I've always thought this, I was always of the side that like there's some level of collusion between her and Rip. That's what's most obvious to me watching the streams. How this turns into, you're gonna need to expand on that because that's a little bit of we're making a little bit of a leap here.
So Bryan was basically he was stealing.
Yes.
Right. That doesn't mean he was cheating with Robbi. Those are two separate instances. At least that is what what Hustler said in their statement. Like this isn't these in a separate thing. We found this.
Well, it's what they it's what they have to say. But I'm sorry. I'm gonna make a very small leap. This would have to be the biggest coincidence on the fucking planet that she's accused of cheating. There's a man in the back who has perfect access to real-time information who took 15,000 off her stack and had no involvement whatsoever. I mean, that's quite the string of coincidences. Yeah. And, Melanie Weisner put out a very eloquent post about Bayesian reasoning and, basically considering the probabilities of each event independently and then considering the probabilities of them occurring dependently, where like one or them having to happen in a sequence. And this just like doesn't track, logically speaking, with any level of reasoning. It would have to be the most out of this world coincidence on the planet. Now, don't get me wrong.
What is very coincidental is, on top of that, the fact that he moved some sort of
file cabinet to block a camera angle. That looks really bad. And that would be like, now we're talking about multiple strings, like a parlay that's like really high, where it's like, okay, you actually stole money. This hand also happened. And now also you happen to shift the file cabinet to block the camera because maybe you didn't like the file cabinet there. Like, right. And his desk slightly shift to get a better view of the graphics in real time. I mean, there's a lot of things going on now. And also what it does is it really, really reduces the how, right? Because we were chasing a lot of ghosts with the vulnerabilities of the system and how she could have potentially tapped into those, everything from like an RFID reader to compiling her own database of the decks and like, all of these things that are plausible, that are possible but not plausible, right? In a world of possibility, yes, it's able to be done, but the effort necessary makes it very implausible. The most plausible explanation is that she was just getting fed real-time info from somebody in the back. And now we're able to draw this link, right? There's a direct link between somebody who had real-time information and Robbi. And you could say that there isn't one, but him physically removing chips from her stack, even if he's done this a bunch in the past, it still indicates that they have a relationship, right, of some degree. Maybe it is just a total coincidence. Maybe he targeted her. Maybe she's the fall person behind a greater cheating scheme. Who knows, right? It's very difficult to know. But as we see it, as objective observers, we have somebody who's under high suspicion of cheating, somebody who has perfect information of the real-time cards. Those two things are independent, right? We have them independently linked together now by an exchange of funds, right? It's impossible to ignore that.
By theft of funds, but yes.
Sure. Well, it's theft. It's theft if there was no prior agreement. Correct. It's theft in the casino's eyes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
The challenge we now have as outsiders is proving that link, right? Like proving that those funds were not removed as theft, but instead as payment for his job well done, right? Or his involvement in the cheating. And that would be almost impossible. I don't know if they're able to seize phone records or text between them. I doubt it since she's not pressing charges. I would love it if Hustler could press charges on him. And I would imagine that they have that right, given that he was an employee, but I could be incorrect.
It would be Casino Live if that was their employee.
But
right, so
they have some. I mean, they're overseen by Hustler when it comes to gaming.
Yeah.
Right. So
sure.
So like if a dealer is palming chips, it's not the player that they palm the chips from that. Well, I mean, maybe that player also has the ability to press charges, but I imagine the actual entity itself, the casino itself, could press charges.
Yeah.
If that's an option, I hope that they do that, because that will then allow the police to get involved, to seize phone records, to seize text messages, right? And see if there's any link between these two. And honestly, if Robbi's clean, she should want that to happen. So she should press charges.
Right. That was the whole conversation yesterday of like she went on Joey, basically exclaimed that she will press charges so that all of us could shut up. And then the next day, the alleged message of Bryan to Robbi comes out, basically, pleading, thank you. I don't have any money. I don't have anything to go on. And now, presumably, she will no longer press charges in partially based on that exchange. Right.
So let's talk about this DM, because this to me was almost more suspect than the Jack forehand, to be quite honest. So it's from Bryan to Robbi. It says, "Hi Robbi, my name is Bryan. I'm the kid who stole 3 chips off your stack. I was working, but now I'm fired. I'm in a really bad place financially, and my debt was adding up. I'm only 24 with 2 kids, and I have no education. I got desperate, and I honestly didn't know whose stack I took the 3 chips off of, but it happened to be yours. Robbi, I believe you. Someone who was so kind to me to give back the money to crybaby Garrett and kind enough to spare me would not be as nice as you are. I don't think you cheated. I never did. I think everyone is fucking stupid and they're defaming an honest person's name because these quote unquote pros can fathom how you read this amazing cash game player for his shit and called him. You 100% had the power to press charges, but you chose not to. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. I'm really genuinely sorry from the bottom of my heart for stealing. I made a split-second decision that has now ruined my reputation and caused me to lose my only source of income. My life is fucked, even if I never have to spend a minute in jail. I'm glad you understand that pressing charges would only have made my life worse. I wish you were here so I can give you a hug and tell you I'm actually sorry. I grew up poor. I still am. I was left at 18 to fend for myself. My mom was a meth addict, and my dad and I have a rocky relationship. Being at the poker table for me was an escape. Being at the casino was the only sense of home that I felt. My life fucking sucks. I was slaving away at Hustler Casino Live, getting paid bare minimum and getting used by them to help accomplish their goals of starting the show. I just wanted to reach out personally and say thank you for saving my life. Thank you for sparing me. Thank you for getting me out of the toxic workplace. Thank you for changing my outlook and kindness and having a genuine heart. I'm behind you 100%, always have been. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to repay you. I just fell on really hard times and I didn't know anyone that was willing to help me. I'm willing. Please let me know if there's anything I do to repay you. I'm willing to do anything. Hard labor, clerical work. I'll do anything to show you I'm sorry. If you want, you can text me, reach out at this number. She says, are you able to go on the Joey Ingram podcast tonight? He says, yes, I can. She says, do you mind if I tweet this out? I'll black out your number. Okay. That to me, I can't help but keep going back to
stop. That's full cap. Full cap.
Yes.
Stop.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, why is this guy calling him Crybaby? Like, who has the incentive to call him Crybaby Garrett?
Right.
It's not going to be Bryan.
No.
It's going to be Robbi. Like, what are we saying? This is full cap. Like,
right.
Go ahead, man.
No, you're right. I keep going back to, like, what it's like to try to get out of a lie as a kid. Like, when you did something really bad. Like, really bad. You stole from a store or some shit like that, right? You just keep digging and digging and digging and digging because there's no other way out. Like, once you start lying, you just have to commit to the lie. And, like, stuff like this, the creating of evidence that backs your story after the fact, right? It's what's so crazy to me that to be fair, I think he wrote this for what it's worth. Like, I know there's a lot of
I don't know, man. I don't know if he wrote this.
No. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Okay.
When I say he wrote this, I mean that he pressed send to Robbi. Like,
oh yeah, I could see that.
I don't think Robbi like created an account and sent it to herself, because clearly this was coming from like some secondary account or his burner account or something like that.
Mm.
So like that's the other thing. We could just like literally trace the account and see if somebody else created it. But my whole thing is like I actually do think that it's his account. I think he's the one who pressed send. I just think he is being incentivized in some capacity to control the spin, right? Now, there's a lot of people who are saying, like, this is his way of ensuring that she continues to not press charges. But again, maybe just barely makes sense because she's so heavily incentivized to press charges. It helps clear her name. Like, everybody's talking about, why don't you guys just assume innocent until proven guilty? It's because she will never go to a court of law as it stands. She is the roadblock to this ever being escalated to the police. Right?
Makes sense.
The only way this ever goes to the police is if somehow in the investigation they find damning enough evidence that they can press charges on her for attempted theft or grand larceny because it's $100,000. But even then, I'm not sure that they'll be able to because she gave the money back. I don't know how that works. Like, if you steal a car and hand it right back, can somebody still press charges?
It's just a joyride, man.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, like you probably don't get the same level of prosecution.
You probably don't get it as bad. I'm not sure.
Right, I don't know either. I'm not going to pretend to know the law in this instance. But what I do know is that the police are not involved and will not be involved anytime soon. So you can't assume innocence until proven guilty because she's not being scrutinized by the actual court of law. She's only being scrutinized by the court of public opinion. And in that instance, we have to assume guilt for everybody until we're able to clear them. And there's no reason not to, right? Like, yes, Hustler's doing its own internal investigation, but much like Stones, we have to scrutinize that investigation because there's just incentive. There's way too much incentive and motive on their side for them to ensure that if the worst case scenario of this all were true, that never gets out, right? And it's very easy to earn the trust of the public by throwing us a bone, right? Like, here you go. Here's something that we found. This guy steals, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, there's more things for us to posture over. There's more things that could potentially link this Bryan and Robbi up and potentially, you know, vindicate Garrett and imply more cheating. but nothing concrete has come out yet. And like, imagine a scenario where like Feldman was the Justin Curitis of all this, and was just working hand in hand with someone. Maybe it wasn't even Robbi, who knows? But like, imagine that to be the case. I love Nik and Ryan to death, but like, in this hypothetical, there's absolutely a 0% chance that it would ever come out, because it would just it would ruin everything. It would just destroy everything that's been built. And Nik is heavily invested in the show. So it's like, even if Nik wants it to come out, like, it just wouldn't, And we have to examine that from the outside looking in. We just have to put everybody under a microscope. We have to put G-Man under a microscope. DJAF is under a microscope right now. The commentators are under a microscope. Like, everybody is under a microscope because it's important to be. And they should all want to be when they're innocent, right? Like, if I'm innocent, I don't want to get dragged, for sure. And I don't want false accusations thrown my way, but I want you to examine me, right? Like, I'll cooperate as much as you possibly want me to if I know I'm innocent. I made a couple fucking massive hero calls on Live at the Bike yesterday. And the first thing that went through my head is like, imagine if they accused me of cheating for calling with ace high. Like, I would open up everything. Whatever the fuck you want. Let's talk. Because I know for a fact I'm innocent. And like, I don't need to explain anything away. Like, I would just let people do their thing, because there's just absolutely nothing that could be discovered. And I'm confident of that, right? And nothing in my life frightens me more than being falsely accused of something serious. This is obviously just in a very public character type of way. But like, I've always had this like deep-seated fear that I would be falsely accused of something like murder. Something where like you're looking at decades of jail time. And we know that this happens. Statistically, it happens, right? Low probability. So I would always just be very cooperative and being very forthright and ensuring that as much transparency as humanly possible was available. And, to that end, Hustler is doing that thus far with their investigation. They've been forthright with who they hired. The leader of that is it the security team? The cybersecurity team. The leader of that is a former poker player, so he's sharp. He's going to know what to look for. This is all critical. Like, they've done the right things, and we should give them kudos for that, right? But we should also make the public very aware of why we're looking into everything.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? We're not accusing anyone. Like, everyone's under a microscope because that's what we need to do, unfortunately, and it kind of sucks. Like the whole like DGAF stuff. Like, I like DGAF. Like, I text with him. Like, we're cool. Like, I went out to LA and played in one of his the morning games that he does and things like that. Like, I listen to the podcast. Everything, like, cool, right? But you're part of production, so you have to be looked at. And I don't want, like, I want them all to be innocent, 100%, right? But like, unfortunately, given the stuff at Stones, like, we just have to look, and there's going to be a little bit of like due diligence that has to be done, unfortunately, for everybody.
Correct. And I think that's the most critical thing. Okay, so enough with that. Let's kind of bring this full circle now to this message and what this means moving forward. So Garrett obviously releasing all of his digging, if you will, his own investigation, all of the evidence. He's now turned that over to the community as a whole. Basically put it all out there for us to judge, for us to look into. I thought it was, I mean, obviously I was privy to it long before. So there's a lot about it that I do think is accurate. There are some things that I think we absolutely have to, question pretty intently. Like the Nik Airball thing, I have zero confidence in. I just think the exchange of money is a little bit sus. There's a lot of other ancillary figures that seem to tie to this. Beanz, we have no idea what, if anything, his involvement is. We do know, so he did corroborate on Joey's podcast last night that he borrowed $20,000 from Robbi. And that was another thing that was exposed in Garrett's thread there. was that Robbi was seen going to Hustler, giving Beanz $20,000. Beanz confirmed that it's a loan that has not been paid back. Robbi hasn't spoken on it at all. I, again, find that to be very suspicious. It just doesn't make any sense. Beanz is alleging that they're strangers. He said he met her once, and that he just tried to get her in the game because he thought she was a fish. Doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make sense.
That's true.
Why are all these strangers
from someone you? So now there's like multiple people that are handing like significant large sums of money off one meeting.
Correct.
Right, like Nik, one meeting hands Rip and Robbi 170. Now Robbi hands Beanz 20 off one meeting. Like,
right,
God damn.
Right, and
Let me
like
get in this group, bro.
and like you and I know that Beanz is he's somebody to be wary of whenever it comes to monetary exchanges. Like, I've known from jump to not do business with him as far as like exchanging money goes. He's always kind of inquiring, and it always starts with like numbers of trust, right? Can I get 600? Can I borrow 800? Like that type of stuff. I've just always showered it. But I don't know if you saw yesterday, I posted, I forgot about this until all of this came to light. Like a year ago during the WSOP fall, Beanz just like randomly hit me up and was inquiring about like large sums of money on behalf of Jungleman. Now, Jungleman got upset that I posted this, but this had nothing to do with like him in general. It was more so to do with the fact that this individual who's being accused of a lot of shady behavior was leveraging his name to try to facilitate a 200K crypto exchange with me, right? And to that end, it's like, if I'm Jungleman, I would be happy that this was public and renouncing it as much as I can. But instead, he kind of like takes this weird defensive posture and says like, yeah, I loaned him 8K, found out that was a bad decision, but he eventually paid me back. And I don't appreciate that you put this out in public type of stance. I don't get that.
I see Jungle's side, like to be completely fair. Like, it's like, because the first sentence just is like, oh, it's time we hear from Jungle. Like, it kind of feels like a little bit like you're kind of like, hey man, like you need to speak for this. Like, what's your involvement?
He does need to speak for this. Yes, that's true. He does. Again, if you're not guilty, you should be happy to speak about this stuff publicly. It leads to progress. It leads to progress in the investigation, and it clears you. It just fucking clears you. Like, why would we want to speak about this privately and not have it come out? That's insane to me.
Fair. I see.
Right? Like, I've played poker with Beanz. This guy DMs me all the fucking time. Let's talk about it. You want to put any single message that we've ever exchanged up? Happy to. Don't care. Because it's always just him trying to set up a game and me always being very leery that I'm getting set up. This guy's like best friends with scumbag Rich. I've already been cheated by Rich. I know how this shakes out. Like, it's not an accident that I'm fading soft lineups that Beanz is putting together. Right?
Man, fuck.
And you know, to the point of like Jungle, it's like he should care about this. If you read all the messages, it's constantly Beanz trying to use Jungle as the prop, right? So he's asking to get into a private game that I was setting up at the time. And he's like, can you make room for two? And it's like, well, I'll make room for you. Who's the second? And he's like, Jungleman. It's like, no, I'm not going to make a seat for fucking Jungleman. Like, that exchange isn't fair. You coming in with a min buy-in and bringing Dan Cates is not something, like, we'll just play without both of you. That type of stuff. And he kept like leaning into it harder and harder of like, well, you know, do you think I could set up a game with Jungle? Like, why is he so heavily incentivized to get this game out with Jungle, right? So it's like, that's all I wanted answers for. And yes, I want them publicly. Because what good does it do if we exchange this information privately? I'm just going to second-handedly air it, right? Like, it's not Jungle that's under the microscope here. It's Beanz. And I think that that's very important.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I would say it's fair. Like, especially if Jungle has no involvement, he's just like, yeah, I mean, I met him one time, whatever. Which I think is like what ended up happening in that thread.
That game ran.
Oh, I'm saying in the thread, in your Twitter thread.
Oh, I don't know. He never really clarified. You know, there was a bunch of back and forth over, I think, a couple of days. Maybe it was over just like one day. There were two separate exchanges for what's worth. The crypto thing was a separate exchange from the attempting to game run. They were like, 2 weeks apart. But the fact that they're 2 weeks apart and he was still constantly talking about Jungle makes me think that they had some sort of relationship at the time, even if it was just like Jungleman thought that he was a whale and was using him as bait to get into games. Like, I understand it. I get how the game works, man. You bring someone, you get a seat. That's the way this economy is set up right now, the private system, right? So like, I don't fault Jungle if that's the case. I'm just asking questions, and I'm doing it publicly because I don't see what the harm would be here, right? Nothing's being tarnished. And the fact of the matter is, the more these conversations take place in the private world, the more shady things happen, right? Remember the whole Perkins thing that happened with Jungle back in the day? That all was fucked because only bits and pieces were being leaked publicly, and it was being led to believe that we were going to get the inside scoop to the biggest cheating ring ever to exist.
Which may have been the case. We just never heard about it.
I mean, we know a lot
because like Jungle,
right. We know a lot more than the public. Right. We know a lot more than the public, right? That's fucked up because something did occur. And sure, if they all want to handle it privately amongst themselves, fine, but don't put out the initial tweet of like, I'm going to go public, right? And then only partially go public. So I guess that's my whole point.
Well, I get it. I mean,
No, I understand why it was resolved that way. I get that. I'm just saying that, like, if you're above board, there's absolutely no reason to not be in the public light with this type of stuff while an investigation is going on. That information is very pertinent, or at least it seems like it could be.
Fair enough. Beanz made $1,000 yesterday, though. You heard?
I did hear.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this whole on the bounty? Do you think the bounty is going to help? 254,000?
I do not.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know because I think the people that could give the most information, I think the people that could give the most information stand to gain more by not saying anything, right? So, like, for instance, let's say this Bryan guy started to sing for $250K, right? How believable is his testimony? He's in hot fucking water right now, right?
If
I'm Bryan,
I'm assuming he has messages though.
Right, yeah, you would have to corroborate in some capacity, but if I'm Bryan right now, I'm fucking finding a way to get that 250. Whether it's throwing Robbi under the bus or Feldman under the bus or the whole Hustler operation under the bus, like, I would find some fucking way to I would find some way to give enough information that 250 became mine. Whether it's completely true, partially true, or not true at all. I guess that's my point, is the incentive is very high. I'm not putting Beanz on the fucking show. We've heard from this guy more than I've heard from Joey. Like, what are we going to listen to him talk for the 100th time about how he just wanted to help Jungleman out? Why do you think he wanted to help Jungleman out? There had to be some fucking incentive. The guy's an elite poker player. You think he just wanted action? Like, stop it. I don't care. He's best friends with Scumbag Rich. What more do we need to know? Look, I won't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. I don't want to talk to him. Okay. Last thing. Because I have a fucking pickleball tournament to win.
Shut up. Oh my God.
I got a pickleball tournament to go win. Yo, if Beanz wants to talk, man, he can go on Joey's podcast again. I'm not about that life. Okay, so the last thing is, what are the next steps moving forward then? As far as I can tell, Garrett's going to be taking a step back off of this. He's now in a position of basically being exonerated, at least by the court of public opinion. And I think that's right for him. I can't imagine what the last week and a half has been like for him. And I imagine it's a huge relief to be in a situation where the degree of confidence that he was right in that moment to call her out for cheating is relatively high. But from our perspective, I think we're just scratching the surface, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, maybe I'm missing something here, but it seems like this story just keeps getting deeper and deeper.
Sorry, Beanz is texting me.
Who gives a fuck, man? Stop. You're always that guy.
I'm just trying to look. I'm trying to look. All I said was the show has to end soon because Berkey has a pickleball tournament, and we'll handle this another time. Like,
why
he
pander?
can come
Why
on-
pander? Like, say what I said. I just said it on the mic. Like, I don't give a fuck what he has to say. I don't. He has plenty of outlets to say what he wants to say. Go make a video and post it on Twitter. I'll retweet it. Like, I just don't care. And you know, I'm not accusing him of anything, so I don't have to care. If this were a situation where I'm saying like, yo, Beanz did X, Y, and Z, let's hear from him and hear what his defense is. Sure, I'll listen to him all day long. But all I'm saying are things that like everybody should know to be true. The guy is a hustler. The guy is putting himself in a situation to better himself financially. And, you know, that's on him. That's his prerogative. I'm just saying that, you know, he's also a part of this fucking story.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely part of the story. We don't know to what extent he's a part of the story, but he's certainly a part of the story. And so it continues, man.
Well, so that's the last thing I want to touch on. Like, this doesn't end here by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know how far along the investigation is. I don't know what more information there is that has or has not come out. But we're still waiting for statement on how, or maybe we're not, I guess. Maybe that was it. Hustler said that this theft occurred. They're going to repay it to Robbi, and Bryan is fired. Is there anything more that we can expect from that storyline? I guess
we need to know what, like, pretty much every game that Bryan worked and if he's ever taken chips before.
Right. Okay, so I guess that's the next
We
layer.
need that.
Yeah, that's the next layer that they're investigating, I would assume. The other pieces of information that we're going to need to come out are, you know, obviously the security team's going to do a full investigation of the server or the computer that the servers run on, all of the equipment, stuff like that. I suspect that's going to come up and show nothing. I think that their server room has a camera in it based off of Doug's video, but it sounds like it was blocked as far as Bryan's involvement. But it seems like at a minimum, we're going to want to know if Bryan was doing anything suspicious during streams. And I guess we're still going to want to try to figure out if or how Robbi and or Rip were being signaled, assuming that, you know, that was the method of cheating. I think those are all like questions that we're looking for answers for. And I think that's probably like the best that we can expect as far as like this investigation turning something up at this point. But I think that there's a lot more to investigate from the public stance, right? There are a lot of threads to pull on here. What do you think?
Like what?
So like all this info on DGAF, like I know Billy very well, and you know, there are a lot of people of very high clout in this community that are speaking out on his behalf. And you know, you and I have talked about this privately. Like, in no way, shape, or form do we ever want to believe that Billy's involved. So I want that
100%. I like Billy a lot.
Yeah, like I've known him longer than literally anybody that I've ever played with in Vegas. So it's like I want that thread to get pulled on so that he can be exonerated if he is in fact innocent. So it's kind of unfortunate for him in the near term, but like I want the public to do their due diligence and you know, do their thing, like scrutinize everything. And it should be an added layer to the investigation now, right? Like we do have all this information of, you know, this seat 2 correlation, and you know, who knows, man? Like it's too late now, I guess, but it would have been nice to like have that seat be a part of the investigation, have it taken away and examined. I say it's too late because, like, you know, as this investigation continues on, like publicly we're revealing a lot of stuff, and it's just like if anybody was cheating, like they're going to cover their tracks. because whoever it is, we assume that they have access. But it would have been nice to see if like there's a thumper in the chair. You know, that's a probable thing too. When we saw that chair vibrating or whatever, like that could have been it, bro. It could have just been like manufactured inside of the chair. You know?
Yeah.
You get one buzz.
I mean, on our side, we just got to keep your ear to the ground, I guess.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of threads to pull at here. I think that there's the Billy thread to pull at, which again, I am claiming that I'm biased. I do hope that he's proven innocent, but I'm open to all possibilities. I think there's the Beanz thread, trying to figure out like what his involvement was, if anything, with this small group. There's the Nik Airball thread. Again, what's his involvement, if any, with this entire group? I still think, now that I think we have a higher degree of confidence that there was cheating involved, I think now we need to be looking into the character and background of Rip and Robbi. I wasn't very bullish on doing that before, because it can lead to people getting dragged. But DGAF's real name is Billy McMahon. But so like I wasn't into that idea before, because I didn't want like personal shit getting brought up and like them getting dragged down and things of that nature. But now I think it's relevant, right? If we could see all these other lies and inconsistencies and cons spreading out beyond poker and into the sphere of, you know, personal life, and, you know, if it proves that there's a lack of funds there, or that they've garnered money in shady ways before, like these are all very meaningful points and circumstantial evidence that help strengthen cases, right? I think we still need to be pulling at the Bryan thread and figure out if there was a relationship there between him and any of the players, specifically Robbi and Rip. To your point, I think we need to know what his behavior was like on all the other streams that he worked. Has he ever palmed chips before? If so, how much? Off of who? In what instances? You know, I think we need to hold Hustler accountable. From multiple sources now, the indication was that Bryan was working somewhere as like he started as an unpaid intern, and then was getting paid like dust, like 40K ish, to do, you know, a job that 5 days a week for the hours that they're working is probably like 150K a year job. So it's, and especially in LA, you know, even if it's only a 70K job anywhere else in the world, you assume that you have to be paying like 1.5 to 2x just for LA cost of living. So, you know, was he underpaid? Like, was he in fact rocketing off tens of thousands in all these games, known by the casino, or sorry, known by the Hustler Live crew, and not questioning anything of it, right? Does that extend out to anybody else in the Hustler crew? Are there other people who potentially have like gambling issues? You know, like how far does this go? These are all the threads that we need to pull at. This is all the information that we need to get public, right? And I think there are a lot of questions to ask, and that's going to be our job moving forward.
So Monday
morning, 8 a.m.
So happy tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no show tomorrow, unless, you know, there'll be breaking news. Don't worry.
Breaking news, another show tomorrow. Maybe another show tonight. We don't even know.
Who knows? But yeah, we're going to do Monday morning, probably 8 a.m. pre-production, 9 a.m. Go time. I want to talk a lot about the security involved in all this, you know, between all of the stream houses, where I think the vulnerabilities could come from, how an inside man job could functionally work, you know, assuming that Bryan was the root of this issue here. You know, I think we will have to re-examine some things from the Robbi and Rip side of things. You know, there are people out there that are compiling a lot of details based off of all of the hands that they played on stream, things of that nature. And I also want to talk to Doug. I found it odd that he put the video out speaking so highly of the security of the Hustler stream, and the way that they have their setup run, because I am confident that it's not It's not the way that it's meant to be. And it makes me wonder what the lodge's setup is. So I want to confirm with him a few things from the security side, from the back end side of how he runs his stream. I don't know. There are just like a lot of things that I think are a bit problematic, and I think they're worthy of discussion. So we'll stick a pin in that until Monday. You have anything to close on?
Oh man, I'm good.
Never good when Christian's quiet. That's when you know dark side's involved.
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Anytime Christian clams up, it's because he's dark side adjacent. So like there are people hitting him up like, hey, watch your fucking mouth.
Yo, end the fucking show, man.
He's like, they dangle a little carrot in front of him. They're like, you want the keys to this Beamer? You better be quiet, boy.
You want that 250K?
Chin's just out there, man. He's fighting his conscience and the money grab all at once. Christian's DR Mamacita knows what's up.
I hope she's good too.
All right, guys. I hope you guys all enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, leave us a comment below. Let us know what your leading theory is. Get out there, do a little bit of work for us. Do some digging. All the internet sleuths out there, all the Reddit warriors, we appreciate you. You guys make our jobs a hell of a lot easier. There's only a handful of us between me, Joey, Durr, Chin, Bob, Deeb.
Sean,
6.
Yeah.
There's what, 6,
Veronica.
7 of us. Veronica. There's not a lot of us. We're the mouthpieces. We're trying to get info out to the masses. So let's get after it. Let's get after it and see what we can find by Monday. All right, that's gonna do it for us. We'll be back Monday morning. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you then.